Milk contains approximately 125 milligrams of calcium per 100 grams. That figure has been repeated so often, in so many contexts, that it has become almost synonymous with calcium itself, as though dairy were the only meaningful source the plant world cannot match. The reality is considerably more interesting. There are dozens of edible plants that contain more calcium per gram than milk, several that contain 2 or 3 times as much, and a handful that exceed it by a factor of 5 or more. Most of them are rarely eaten, rarely discussed, and almost never mentioned in conversations about bone health or calcium deficiency. What follows are 15 of them. Number 1. Stinging nettle, 481 mg per 100 gram. Urtica dioica is one of the most nutritionally dense wild plants in the temperate world, and its calcium content, approximately 481 milligrams per 100 grams of raw leaf, is nearly 4 times that of whole milk. This figure alone would justify attention. Combined with the plant's broader nutritional profile, significant iron, magnesium, vitamin K, vitamin C, and a range of polyphenols, nettle represents one of the most comprehensive nutritional packages available from any leafy green. The stinging quality of fresh nettles disappears entirely with brief heat, 30 seconds of blanching in boiling water or wilting in a dry pan neutralizes the formic acid and histamine in the trichomes that cause the sting. What remains is a deep green leaf with a flavor often described as richer and more complex than spinach, suitable for soups, pestos, pasta fillings, and teas. Research confirms nettle's anti-inflammatory properties are significant. Clinical trials have found nettle extract comparable to anti-inflammatory medications for the management of allergic rhinitis and osteoarthritis symptoms. Studies demonstrate diuretic and kidney-supporting effects, adrenal support through its mineral content, and prostate health benefits in men, specifically reduction of benign prostatic hyperplasia symptoms in clinical trials. Nettle grows prolifically as a garden plant and wild food, producing multiple harvests through the growing season. In more than 20 years of foraging and cultivating medicinal plants, nettle has consistently proven itself one of the most rewarding, generous, nutritious, and genuinely medicinal in ways that become apparent with regular use. Number 2. Moringa leaf, 185 ml per 100 grain fresh, up to 2,000 milligrams dried. The calcium figures for Moringa oleifera depend significantly on preparation. Fresh moringa leaves contain approximately 185 milligrams of calcium per 100 grams, already exceeding milk. Dried moringa leaf powder concentrates this to approximately 2,000 milligrams per 100 grams, roughly 16 times the calcium density of milk by weight. Moringa's calcium is accompanied by the cofactors that support its absorption and utilization. Vitamin K, magnesium, and phosphorus are all present in meaningful amounts. Vitamin K2 in particular is essential for directing calcium into bone tissue, rather than allowing it to deposit in arterial walls, a distinction that matters considerably for anyone supplementing calcium for bone health. The broader nutritional profile of moringa has already been discussed in the context of medicinal plants, its complete protein, its iron, its antioxidant compounds. In the specific context of calcium, it represents perhaps the most practical option on this list for daily use. The dried powder incorporates easily into smoothies, soups, sauces, and porridge, delivering significant calcium alongside a comprehensive array of micronutrients in a form that requires no cooking and stores well. Number 3. Amaranth leaves, 250 mg per 100 gram. Amaranthus species, grown across Africa, Asia, and Latin America as a primary leafy vegetable for millennia, contain approximately 215 milligrams of calcium per 100 grams of fresh leaf. The grain amaranth that has gained attention in Western health food circles is the same plant. What is less well known is that the leaves are edible, highly nutritious, and widely consumed as a staple green in the cultures where amaranth has always been grown. Amaranth leaves have a mild, slightly earthy flavor that works well cooked, sautéed with garlic, added to soups, or used as a spinach substitute in any cooked preparation. Unlike spinach, amaranth leaves contain relatively low levels of oxalic acid, which means the calcium they contain is more bioavailable than the calcium in higher oxalate greens like spinach and chard. Amaranth is one of the easiest plants to grow. It tolerates heat, drought, and poor soil with remarkable resilience, and a single plant produces an abundance of harvestable leaves through the growing season before setting seed. The seeds themselves are a complete protein and a good source of calcium, making the entire plant useful from leaf to grain. Number 4. Watercress, 120 milliliters per 100 gram. Nasturtium officinale, watercress, contains approximately 120 milligrams of calcium per 100 grams, comparable to milk, with the significant advantage that its calcium is accompanied by vitamin K, vitamin C, and glucosinolates, sulfur compounds that are converted in the body to isothiocyanates with documented anti-cancer properties. Research on watercress has produced some of the most compelling findings of any leafy green. A randomized controlled trial found that daily watercress consumption significantly reduced DNA damage in lymphocytes, a direct measure of oxidative stress at the cellular level, and significantly increased blood levels of antioxidant carotenoids. Studies confirm watercress consumption reduces markers of inflammation and supports thyroid function through its iodine content. Watercress grows readily in containers kept consistently moist or in indoor water gardens. It is an aquatic plant by nature, thriving in shallow water or very wet soil. Fresh watercress added to salads, sandwiches, and soups provides calcium alongside one of the most impressive phytochemical profiles of any common culinary green. Number 5. Dandelion greens, 187 mg per 100 gram. Taraxacum officinale is most commonly encountered as a lawn weed and most commonly removed without a second thought. The leaves of a dandelion plant contain approximately 187 milligrams of calcium per 100 grams of fresh weight, along with significant vitamin K, vitamin A, and a range of bitter compounds with documented digestive and liver-supporting properties. The bitterness of dandelion leaves, which increases as the plant matures, is, as with many bitter plants, a reliable indicator of medicinal activity. The bitter compounds, including taraxacin and taraxacarin, stimulate bile production and liver function, supporting the fat digestion and fat-soluble vitamin absorption that are essential for calcium metabolism. A plant that provides calcium and simultaneously supports the digestive processes required to absorb it represents a particularly complete nutritional contribution. Young dandelion leaves harvested in spring, before the plant flowers, are mild enough to use raw in salads. Older leaves are better blanched or sautéed, which reduces their bitterness while preserving their nutritional value. Dandelion greens have been eaten across Europe and North America as a spring tonic green for centuries. The practice of foraging them fell out of fashion as lawns became managed with herbicides, but the plant and its value never changed. Number 6. Lamb's quarters. Fat hen. 309 milligrams per 100 gram. Chenopodium album, called lamb's quarters in North America and fat hen in Britain, is a common garden weed that most gardeners spend significant effort removing. It contains approximately 309 milligrams of calcium per 100 grams of fresh leaf, more than twice the calcium density of milk, along with iron, manganese, and vitamins A and C. Lamb's quarters has been eaten as a pot herb across Europe, Asia, and North America for thousands of years. Archaeological evidence places it in the diet of Neolithic European populations. It was eaten by indigenous peoples across North America as a primary spring green. Its status as a weed is recent, the product of a shift toward monoculture agriculture and managed lawns that simply removed the context in which it had always been valued. The flavor of lamb's quarters cooked is mild and pleasant, closer to spinach than to most stronger flavored wild greens. It can be used in any preparation that calls for spinach or chard, sautéed, in soups, added to egg dishes, or incorporated into pasta fillings. The plant grows readily from seed and will self-seed prolifically in any garden where it is allowed to complete its cycle. Number 7. Turnip greens, 190 bmr per 100 gram. The roots of turnips are familiar to most people who grow vegetables. The greens, the leaves of the turnip plant, are considerably less well known outside the American South, where they have been a staple of the cuisine for centuries, and parts of Europe where brassica greens have always been valued. Turnip greens contain approximately 190 milligrams of calcium per 100 grams of fresh leaf, more than milk, along with vitamins K, A, and C, and glucosinolates shared with other brassica vegetables. Research on brassica greens consistently confirms anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and anti-carcinogenic properties from the isothiocyanate compounds produced when glucosinolates are hydrolyzed during chewing or cooking. The bioavailability of calcium in turnip greens is high. Brassicas in general contain relatively low levels of oxalic acid compared to spinach and chard, meaning the calcium present is genuinely accessible to the body. This distinction matters. Raw spinach contains more calcium than turnip greens by weight, but because spinach is high in oxalates that bind calcium and prevent its absorption, the net calcium delivery from cooked turnip greens is often greater. Turnip greens are best cooked, braised slowly with garlic and olive oil, added to bean soups, or wilted and dressed with lemon juice. They grow quickly from seed, making them one of the most productive calcium sources available from a kitchen garden. Number 8. Collard greens, 232 wells per 100 gram. Brassica oleracea var. Viridis. Collard greens have been cultivated continuously for over 2,000 years and remain a dietary staple across West Africa, the American South, Brazil, and parts of Southern Europe. They contain approximately 232 milligrams of calcium per 100 grams of fresh leaf, and critically, their oxalate content is low enough that the calcium bioavailability is genuinely high. Research specifically on the calcium bioavailability of collard greens found it comparable to or exceeding that of dairy milk in some studies, a finding that challenges the assumption that plant calcium is systematically less bioavailable than dairy calcium. The combination of meaningful calcium content and high bioavailability makes collard greens one of the most effective plant-based calcium sources in practical terms, not just on paper. Collards also contain K2-like compounds, lutein, zeaxanthin, and a range of anti-inflammatory phytochemicals. Long-cooked collard greens, braised for an hour or more with aromatics, develop a deep, complex flavor and a silky texture that explains their enduring central role in the cuisines that have relied on them for centuries. Collard plants are hardy, productive, and attractive in a garden. They tolerate frost, grow through winter in mild climates, and produce harvests for months from a single planting. Number 9. Chia seeds, 631 ml per 100 g. Salvia hispanica, chia, is perhaps the best-known plant on this list, but its calcium content remains widely underappreciated. At approximately 631 milligrams per 100 grams, chia seeds contain more than 5 times the calcium of milk by weight, along with a complete omega-3 fatty acid profile, significant magnesium, phosphorus, and manganese. The calcium in chia is accompanied by magnesium and phosphorus, two minerals that work synergistically with calcium in bone formation and maintenance. Magnesium in particular activates the enzymes responsible for incorporating calcium into bone matrix, and many people who supplement calcium without adequate magnesium experience limited bone density improvement as a result. 2 tablespoons of chia seeds, approximately 30 grams, provide around 180 milligrams of calcium, comparable to a glass of milk, in a form that also delivers omega-3 fatty acids, fiber, and complete protein. Chia seeds can be grown as houseplants. They are technically the same species as the ornamental Salvia hispanica and produce their small seeds readily in containers given adequate sun. Number 10. Sesame seeds, 975 mg per 100 gr. Sesamum indicum produces seeds with a calcium content of approximately 975 milligrams per 100 grams, nearly 8 times the calcium density of milk. Sesame has been cultivated for over 5,000 years across the Middle East, Africa, and Asia, where it appears in both culinary and medicinal contexts with consistent frequency. Tahini, ground sesame paste, provides approximately 430 milligrams of calcium per 100 grams, making it one of the most practical high-calcium condiments available. A tablespoon of tahini in a salad dressing, sauce, or dip delivers meaningful calcium alongside the sesame's documented antioxidant compounds, sesamin and sesamolin, which have demonstrated blood pressure lowering, cholesterol reducing, and anti-inflammatory effects in clinical research. Unhulled sesame seeds retain more calcium than hulled seeds, as much of the mineral content is concentrated in the outer seed coat. Traditional preparations that use unhulled or minimally processed sesame, including gomashio in Japanese cuisine and many Middle Eastern preparations, preserve this calcium advantage. Number 11. Dried figs, 162 mg per 100 gr. Ficus carica in dried form concentrates its nutritional content significantly. Dried figs contain approximately 162 milligrams of calcium per 100 grams, more than fresh milk, along with potassium, magnesium, iron, and a prebiotic fiber content that supports the gut microbiome, whose health is increasingly linked to calcium absorption efficiency. The calcium in dried figs is accompanied by polyphenols with documented anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties. Research on fig consumption confirms benefits for digestive health, blood sugar regulation, and cardiovascular risk markers. The combination of calcium, magnesium, and potassium in figs, along with their low sodium content, creates a mineral profile that is specifically favorable for bone health and blood pressure regulation simultaneously. 5 dried figs provide approximately 135 milligrams of calcium, a meaningful contribution to daily requirements in a form that is portable, shelf-stable, and genuinely pleasant to eat. Number 12. Kale, 150 milligrams per 100 gram. Brassica oleracea var. Sabelica, kale, has received more attention than almost any other leafy green in recent years, though often for reasons other than its calcium content. At approximately 150 milligrams per 100 grams of raw leaf, kale exceeds milk in calcium density, with the same bioavailability advantage shared by other brassica greens. Low oxalate content means the calcium present is genuinely absorbed. Kale's nutritional profile extends well beyond calcium. It is one of the richest food sources of vitamin K1, essential for the bone-building and blood-clotting processes that depend on it, and contains lutein and zeaxanthin in concentrations that support long-term eye health. Research consistently links kale consumption to reduced inflammation markers, improved lipid profiles, and protective effects against oxidative stress. Kale is one of the most productive plants in a kitchen garden. It tolerates cold, grows through winter in most temperate climates, and continues producing harvestable leaves for months or years from a single planting. A few kale plants provide a consistent year-round source of calcium and vitamin K in a form that is available whenever it is needed. Number 13. Arugula, 160 milligram per 100 gram. Eruca vesicaria, arugula or rocket, is primarily known as a salad green. its peppery, slightly bitter flavor, a familiar addition to Italian and Mediterranean cuisine. Its calcium content of approximately 160 milligrams per 100 grams places it above milk, with the additional advantage of very low oxalate content and a concentration of glucosinolates that produce isothiocyanates with documented anti-carcinogenic properties. Arugula is among the fastest-growing salad greens available, seed to harvestable leaf in as little as 4 weeks under good conditions. It grows readily in containers, produces continuously when harvested regularly, and self-seeds prolifically when allowed to flower. A small container of arugula on a kitchen windowsill provides fresh, calcium-rich greens through most of the year with minimal effort. Number 14. Dried thyme, 1,190 mg per 100 gram. Thymus vulgaris in dried form contains approximately 1,090 milligrams of calcium per 100 grams, 15 times the calcium of milk. This figure requires context. Nobody consumes 100 grams of dried thyme at a sitting. But used generously as a culinary herb, a teaspoon of dried thyme per serving, used multiple times per week, the cumulative calcium contribution becomes genuinely significant over time. The same calculation applies to other dried culinary herbs in this range. Dried oregano contains approximately 1,576 milligrams per 100 grams. Dried rosemary approximately 1,280 milligrams. The herbs that appear in daily cooking across Mediterranean cuisines are, among other things, consistent low-level calcium contributors that have been supplementing the calcium intake of those populations quietly for millennia. Thyme also contains thymol and carvacrol, volatile compounds with documented antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory, and expectorant properties. A kitchen garden that includes a productive thyme plant contributes both culinary and medicinal value continuously through the growing season and beyond, as thyme dries well and retains its potency in storage. Number 15. Dried basil, 2,240 milligrams per 100 gram. Oesamum basilicum in dried form contains approximately 2,240 milligrams of calcium per 100 grams, the highest calcium concentration of any plant on this list, and nearly 18 times the density of milk. The same contextual note applies as with thyme. Culinary use involves small quantities, but those quantities, used daily across years of cooking, represent a consistent calcium contribution that has been invisible in most nutritional discussions because herbs are rarely included in dietary calcium calculations. Fresh basil contains approximately 177 milligrams of calcium per 100 grams, already exceeding milk, and is more practical as a daily calcium source than dried basil simply because it can be consumed in larger quantities. A generous handful of fresh basil leaves added to a meal contributes meaningful calcium alongside the plant's documented anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial compounds. Growing basil in a kitchen pot ensures a continuous supply of fresh leaves at peak nutritional potency. Commercially dried basil retains reasonable calcium content, but loses much of its volatile compound activity. The gap between fresh and dried is significant enough that a kitchen plant is worth the modest effort of maintaining one. The calcium in these 15 plants has always been there. The dandelion growing in the lawn, the nettles at the garden's edge, the lamb's quarters pushing through the vegetable beds. These are not weeds to be cleared, but nutritional resources that most modern gardens eliminate without a second thought. The relationship between plant calcium and bone health is more nuanced than the dairy industry's long-running messaging suggests. Bioavailability, cofactors, and the overall mineral balance of the diet matter as much as raw calcium content. What the plants on this list offer, most of them, is calcium in a matrix that includes the magnesium, vitamin K, and phytochemicals that support its absorption and utilization. Growing even a few of them, Using them consistently and allowing them to become part of the daily rhythm of cooking is a practical act with cumulative consequences. The body builds bone slowly, over years. The plants that support that process are, fortunately, among the easiest and most generous things a garden can grow. For those who found this useful, a like helps this content reach others exploring plant-based nutrition. Comments from gardeners who grow and eat any of these plants regularly are always welcome. There is knowledge and long practice that research does not always capture. Subscribing ensures the next exploration arrives when it is ready.